Hi guys. Hi everyone. Hi. I'm gonna give everyone another second to join, and then we're gonna start. And this is what we're painting today. As you can notice, I added a little bit of shimmery color here. So there's a little bit of metallic here, but you don't have to add metallic if you don't want to. It's not a requirement. All right, guys, so I think this is a good time for us to start. Welcome, everyone. If we haven't met before, my name is Vera. I'll be your for today, and this is what we're painting. It's going to be a galaxy-type sky with some trees here and a couple mountains. And, of course, you're welcome to add a shimmery metallic colors if you have them. If not, you don't have to. It's going to look wonderful with and without shimmery metallic colors. I'm just giving you that as an option. All right, so what are we going to do? Let's quickly go through our supplies to make sure we have everything that we need. First thing you're going to need is something circular. I grabbed a plate, so we're going to outline it to create our initial circle. So just grab something circular, whatever that may be. Plate, a pot lid, anything that you have that's circular. And let me put this aside for now. What else are we going to need? We need, that's just my palette where I'm going to be showing you colors because I know it's hard to see on a watercolor palette. So I will be using my watercolor, this watercolor. So this is a koi watercolor, but you're free to use any watercolor that you have. It can be, like for example, this one, it can be a dry cake palette watercolor, or you can do tube watercolor, whatever you have. For me, it's a dry palette. And again, I'm going to be showing you on this because this is very hard to see which color is what, right? It's very dark. So I'm going to be showing you on that one. Now, if you don't have a watercolor with so many different colors, that's totally fine. You don't have to. You can always use a simpler version. Like, for example, I have a simpler version here. Let me show you. Something like this will work just as well. So if you have something like that, feel free to use it. You just might need to mix certain colors because this doesn't have as many pre-mixed options. So just feel free to mix colors if you're using more a simple palette. And if you have a metallics, you can also add metallics. So this is my metallics here. And feel free to add metallics. I have this, my kind of color list in a way. Yeah, and you can use whichever really. So that's very optional, but you can do that too. And of course, you're gonna need a pencil and a watercolor paper. This is a very, very standard watercolor paper, nothing special about it. So feel free to use that. If you have a fancier one, even better, but just make sure you use a paper that's appropriate for watercolor. So it should be either paper that's made specifically for watercolor or just a very thick paper. And of course, brushes. I will be using a couple different brushes. For this particular painting, it doesn't matter how many brushes you have, but it is always good to have at least two. So you're gonna need a small detailed brush for sure. So this is 0, this is as small as it gets. And I'm gonna be using likely this one, which is number 12. But again, if you have more than that, great. You can grab 3 different brushes, 4 different brushes. Doesn't matter. It's just good to have variety. And make sure they have a nice pointy tip. Do you see how this brush has a nice pointy tip? That's what most important for this particular painting. All right, so grab your piece of paper. I'm gonna rip one off from here. And grab your plate or whatever else you're gonna be outlining. Put it in the middle and we're going to outline it. Sorry guys, just want to fix my camera. Oops. All right, so I'm gonna grab my pencil and I'm gonna put my plate right in the middle. And I'm gonna outline that. And that's it. Plate can go aside. We're not gonna need it anymore. So yeah, that's pretty much it. All right, guys, this camera should self-adjust in a second. It does that from time to time. It gets very blurry, but then it adjusts itself. Come on, camera. Time to adjust. Sorry, guys, I don't know why it's doing it right now. It doesn't always do that, or usually. All right. So now what are we going to do? We're going to start with the background and we're going to work from light to dark. So we're going to start with the middle. We're actually going to make everything wet first. And then we're going to start from the middle and we'll go to the sides. We'll go to this color. I'm going to use this colder pink color here. And then after that, I'm going to move to further and I will add a little bit of this one and a little bit of this one. So some of that one and some of this one. And then I'm going to add some bluer colors. So as I go further, I'm going to switch to blues and I'll add some of that. So that's pretty much what is coming. And then we'll make it to our dark color. So this color and black we'll do for the end. And then we'll do second layer. We're not going to do this all in just one layer. We're going to work with a couple different layers. Now for the mountain, we're actually going to sketch mountain right away so we don't get on it. As for the trees, we're going to add them as a second layer so you can add a background right underneath them. But for the mountain, we want to sketch it out so we don't really go with a background underneath it. We'll just keep that paint white. So grab your pencils and right here, I'm going to add a mountain. So right in the middle, it can be a bit taller, a bit shorter, completely up to you. I'll do something like that. See one side of the mountain. And then I'll do second side of the mountain. That's my mountain number one. And then I'll add a second smaller mountain behind it. So that's my two mountains here. And then on the mountain right here, the front one, I'm going to add a line close to the middle, not straight line, but just somewhat a divider line right here. That's it. I'm not going to be adding any more lines after that. So now I'm going to move on to the actual painting. So I'm going to put this aside, and I'm going to grab my palette and I'm going to grab my water. I'll put this one aside too here. And I'll start by taking a lot of water on whichever large brush you have. Doesn't really matter. And with this water, I'm going to water down the entire circle. Not the mountain though. Don't get into the mountain. And you don't have to go right to the edge, but mostly just water down the middle. So do you see there's quite a bit of water here, but it doesn't go right to the edge. You could go right to the edge, but it's just, that's not a requirement. If you don't go right to the edge, that's fine. Not a big deal at all. All right, and after that, I'm going to move to my first color, which is going to be this colder pink. If you prefer to use any other color, that's fine. Just keep something on a pinker side. So, where it is? Here it is. Here's that color for me. And then very lightly, I'm going to add it. So the middle, reserve it for complete white. You see, I'm not adding it right in the middle. I'm reserving that middle for complete white. And I'm just kind of adding it around. All right, now as soon as you added this color, and you can spread it a little bit more with just water. So I'm just taking water and spreading it around a little. Then after that, I'm going to move to my next color, which is, I'm actually going to take the same color. You see, just a little darker, more saturated. And I'm just going to add a couple more brush strokes of more saturated version of that. Again, not right in the middle, a little bit further. Oh, and guys, I forgot to mention, it's good to have a paper towel because we might get pools of water that we need to absorb. So make sure you have a piece of paper towel somewhere nearby and ready to go. That way, wherever you see the water starts getting into a pool of water, you can always take a paper towel and just dab it off. So then I'm going to move to my second pink. And my second pink, it's still like in the same section in a way right here, just different shade. So for my second one, I'm going to go a little warmer. I'm going to go with this one. It's still like a pinky color. It's just more like a strawberry pink. Very saturated though, like a berry pink. Or if you only have one, that's totally fine. You can add a smidge of maybe yellow to it to make it a little warmer and use quite saturated. And with this, we're gonna go on the sides too. So somewhere right here. Do you see I'm still avoiding that midsection? A little bit right here. You see we're getting a bit darker as we go, right? And that's exactly what we want. We're going to continue getting darker as we go. Now I added my second layer. Wherever you feel like it didn't blend properly because it wasn't wet enough, like for example here on top, you see here on top it didn't blend. There is a harsh line. So I'm just going to take water on my brush, and it was just water. I'm going to spread it a little because I don't want those harsh lines. So wherever you see harsh lines, spread them. It was just water. And after you have that, we're going to move to our next color. So now we're going to go on to more of a purples. So do you see how here there's like, and here too, there's some purple. So that's what we're going to, you can use any purple that you have. I really only have one. This is the only purple I have. So I'm going to go with that one. And you're going to use it quite saturated, and of course, a lot of water. As you notice, I'm using ginormous amounts of water, and I kind of prepare this really saturated water on my palette before I go ahead onto my paper. And now with this is really just a very concentrated, saturated water, dirty, painted water. So with that, I'm going around. So I'm not covering all my pink. I am in certain areas, I'm overlapping my pink with purple, but really I'm adding purple on a side of pink mostly. So do you see on two sides? We have first pink, second pink, now we have purple. And again, wash off your brush. And if anywhere it's harsh lines, just with a clean water on your brush, smudge them. Make it all blend. Now, if it doesn't need to, if it blended naturally, don't touch it. You want it to do its own thing. You want to try to control it as little as needed. Other than that, you want to let it flow. And of course, if you have any pools of water, just take your paper towel and just lightly absorb that extra water that you don't want. If you have a good watercolor paper, it shouldn't really do that. In my case, I am using mostly watercolor paper that I could find. At this time, it's not the best quality watercolor paper, but it is a watercolor paper. So as you can see, it pools quite a bit. Yeah, if you have a better quality watercolor paper, you're not going to have that problem. But if you're using similar to mine, you will, and that's okay, because we just can grab a paper towel and absorb. And now we're going to move to our blues. So we're going to start with a warmer blue. If you have a variety of blues, like for example, I have a variety of blues here. Again, you don't have to use as many blues, but if you have choices, you're going to start with something more on the purple side. So those blues, this is all my blues, right? Do you see those are they're usually located closer to purples on your watercolor palette. And B, do you see they're warmer? This is like the closest to ultramarine blue. This is, I would say, yeah, similar to ultramarine blue. Don't use those cold ones that have a green hint of green to it. Those are not the ones that you want to use. You want to use the ones that almost have a hint of purple to them. So grab one of them, whichever one that's going to be, completely up to you. But again, if you have ultramarine blue, that's a great blue to use. If you don't, if you only have one blue, what you could do, you can always add a touch of purple to it. So you can grab your only blue, water it down again, put it on the side, and then just grab a touch of pink or a touch of purple, add to it, and it will give you just the right color. And then with that, we're going to go around and we're going to add some of that. And again, hopefully everything is still wet because it's easier for it to blend and merge and do its thing if everything's still wet. If it's not, that's okay. You can always add go back and blend it with a clean wet brush. That's a good option too. All right, and then we're going to finish with a cold blue. So do you remember I told you about the blues that have this hint of green, right? They're usually located further on your palette, closer to greens. Grab one of them, whichever one you want to go with. I think I'm going to go with this one, or maybe even this one. They both are really nice and dark and cold. And if you only have one blue, you're going to add a touch of green to it and a touch of black. And that's how you're going to make it colder. And with that blue, we're going to finish up all this. And again, you can bring a little bit of that into closer to the middle. Not, of course, not right in the middle, but just a little bit here and there. Add a couple dots. It should spread by itself. If it doesn't, you can spread it manually with water. All right, so and I'm gonna spread it a little. So I'm gonna wash off my brush, dab it off on a paper towel, and with a clean, slightly wet brush, I feel like there are certain areas that are completely unblended. I'll just go over them with just water on my brush, nothing else. And I'll spread the paint a little bit. And you want to do that as little as possible. You don't really need to overdo that because you want it to naturally spread. That's the goal. And that's it. This is our first layer. So after you have your first layer, we're going to need to let it dry up just a little bit. It doesn't have to be fully dry for us to move to the next step, but it should be a little bit drier than what it is right now. Because second layer is not going to be flowing into our first layer. They're completely separate. So the first layer, we needed to flow all those colors into one another. So that's good. We did that. For the second layer, it doesn't need to flow into the first layer. So we're going to need to wait until that dries. But as we wait, we can always work on a mountain for a little bit. But I'll give you guys a second and let me know when you have it. I'll give you a second to finish this. Whenever you have it, just give me a thumbs up, say I'm good to go in chat, and we will move to our mountains and we'll work on our mountains for a little bit. This is what our region looks like. And again, I added some metallic so you can see that shimmer, but you don't have to do that. It looks wonderful with and without metallics. Ready, yes. I see one ready. That's good. How's everyone else? All right, more readies. Awesome. Great job, guys. So for the mountains, we're only going to use black. That's all. Yes, To answer your question, if it's okay that your colors blended, absolutely. You want your colors to blend. Just want it to do its own thing. They need to be somewhat blended, but also, yes, you definitely should be able to see that they're different colors. They shouldn't blend into one mess. And if that happened, that's still okay. We can fix that on the second layer. All right, so I'm going to put this one aside, original. And you see here, there are different shades of gray, so that's what we're going to do right now. You're going to use either your medium brush or your small brush. I'm going to go with my small brush here. And I'm going to take some gray. So that's just black that's watered down. So I'm going to take some black. And I'm not going to use it very saturated, so make a fairly watered down version of that. And with that, we're going to go on this side first, and we'll add lines from the bottom up. Do you see how light they are? Still black paint, it's just really watered down. So we're going to be adding those lines from the bottom up. You see, I covered this entire section of this mountain with this light gray brush strokes, which are just really, really watered down black. And I'm going to make a little bit more of that color. And then on this side, I'm kind of going to color it in flat. So the entire thing I'm going to color with that light gray. Ish, you don't have to go to the bottom because the bottom is going to be super, super black. So you can leave that for now. And then with a little bit more of that color, I'm going to go on to the mountain behind, and I'll do something similar. I'll add a couple of those brush strokes. So that's our first layer, and do you see how light it is? That's what you want, because we're going to build the darkness and build the intensity as we go. Now after that, I'm going to move to slightly darker gray. So I'm going to take the same black, just this time a little bit more saturated, not crazy saturated, just a little bit more saturated. So it needs to still have quite a bit of water in it. And I'm going to do second layer of those brush strokes. And you see this one is a little darker. Still not a solid black, but it is definitely visibly darker. You see, I'm going to overlap. I'm going to add a second layer. Do you see? To answer your question, if you can use food coloring for this, I have no idea. Please let me know if it works. Definitely try it. It may work. I don't know. Do you have liquid food coloring or do you have the gel food coloring? If it's a liquid one, I think it should work. I don't see why it wouldn't. I don't know how well it would work, but it doesn't hurt trying. Let me see, and I'm going to add a couple of those on a second mountain as well. And then on this side, the one that we colored fully, I'm going to add a second layer as well. So this time I'm going to add them in the same way that I did here. So I'm not going to fully color it. I'm going to add more of a lines. All right, so this is our mountain backdrop. But this is without adding black. We're still going to add actual dark saturated black, but we had to do this first before we go into black. And we're not going to do black just yet. What we're going to do is we're going to work on our background for a little more, because now our background dried up a little, so we can go back to our background and work a little bit more there. And then we'll, as it dries up again, we will come back and work on our mountain a little more. Now again, I'm going to give you guys a second to do this. When you have it, when you're ready to move back to our background, let me know, tell me that you're good to go in chat here, and then we're going to go back to our upper section, to the background. Well, second layer on everything. My background is still somewhat wet too, and that's fine, as long as you don't have pools of water. How do you see? This one, if I touch it, it like lifts off the paint. This one's still wet, but if I touch it, it doesn't lift the paint. So that's what you want. You don't want it to lift the paint. If your background is still like wet, like it has a pools of water, they're still somewhat wet, and you feel like if you touch it, it's going to lift the paint, then give it a little bit longer to dry. All right, I'll give you guys another second. Now, if anyone has questions, feel free to ask. I'll be happy to help you with anything that I can. To answer your question, should we blow dry it if it's still wet? You can. You don't have to, because generally watercolor dries fairly fast. So it might take you another little minute to dry it. But if you have it, you can blow dry it. That would not hurt either. That wouldn't be a mistake. So totally up to you. All right, I think we can move to our background and you guys can move on it whenever you're ready. Again, it shouldn't take you too long to dry. All right, now we're gonna add second color. Second layer. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna add nothing in the middle here. We're gonna try to keep this middle as light as we can because it's already pretty light, but we're gonna darken it up from here out. So we're not gonna go from here again. We're not gonna start here and make our way out. We're gonna make our way from here out. We want to add more intensity around in a way. And we're going to start with still pink. Why not? We can still use the same color. We're just not going to go as close with this color this time. And we're going to start with the same pink we originally started with. So let me show you on my palette what that looks like. This one, it's like a colder pink. It's very magenta light, but a little bit on a cold side. So if you don't have that, if you only have one pink, you can either use that, or because this one is on a colder side, you can just add a tiniest dot of purple to your pink and that should give you that color. So I'm going to take that, I'm going to put it here. I'm going to try to make it as concentrated as I can, or at least pretty concentrated. And what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to go in certain areas here. And you see it kind of goes on blobby, and that's okay because I'm going to show you what to do with it. So I added some on top, but here I'm not going to go as close. Mostly, do you see I'm adding it on two purple sides. See, overlapping my purple. All right, you see I added it and it's a bit blobby. So now I'm going to wash off my brush, dab it off on a paper towel, and with a clean, slightly wet brush, I'm going to go around it and create that buffer of water that will blend that into the background. And this time you don't have to do that everywhere really, only on the areas that you want blended. If some of it is more textured and you can see the edges, that's okay for this layer. On this layer, it's allowed. The first layer, we didn't want to have that, but on the second layer, it's fine. All right, so that's my pink. Now I'm going to do the same thing with purple. So I'm going to move straight onto my purple. I'll do a little bit of that. So again, certain areas just add a bit of darker like sections. And here. And again, whenever you have it, you can wash off your brush, dab it off lightly on a paper towel, and with a clean, somewhat wet brush, you can smudge wherever it needs to be and blend it. Wherever it doesn't need to be and you love the texture, then you keep it. Don't have to blend every single thing here. All right, so that's my purple. Now do you see it builds that intensity. It gets darker and darker as we go around. Now we're going to move to our third color, which was called warm blue. Do you remember that ultramarine blue that we used? So we're gonna go right back to that color. And again, get it as saturated as you can this time. And just add, again, a little bit of it here and there. But you see, as further I go, I'm continuously adding it closer and closer to the edge. And again, if you need to blend it, blend it. If you don't need to blend it, don't blend it. All right, that's pretty good. And then again, right away, I'm going to move to my cold blue, which was something between that. Either or is fine. Just some darker blue. If you don't have that blue, if you only have one blue, you can use that blue just to add a touch of black to it and a tiny, tiny touch of green to make it a little colder and a little darker. And with this, again, I'm going to add it pretty close to the edge. And wherever else you feel like it should go. And then a very last color, actually, let me blend this one a little bit more. Just a little more. And then the last one, I'm going to use straight black. And I'm going to use it pretty saturated. Do you see? Not transparent. And I'm going to go right around the very edge here. I'll just finish up that section right around the edge with the black. Straight black. And if you want to bring it a little bit closer in certain areas, you can. I probably wouldn't recommend going too far in with it. But a little bit closer and here and there is fine. All right, and here is our background. It's not fully finished yet. We still, let me show you the original, but we're still gonna add some splatter, right? But this is a really nice, solid backdrop for that. So this is really great. So do you see on this one, you can always add a little bit more white in the middle, which we probably will, and then we can add lots of splatter. So again, let me know when you guys have it, give me a thumbs up, and then I'll show you what to do next. But if you need a bit more time, that's okay too. Yeah, no worries at all. Thanks for the thumbs up. And for those of you who need a bit more time, that's okay. You can definitely take a bit more time. I know it's a big step. I kind of blew through it fast because, again, watercolor is water-based paint that requires everything to be wet. So you kind of have to go at the pace that your water takes you. But if you need a bit more time, go for it. Take your time. Now that I have this, I'm not in rush. I can take, we can take a bit more time. Just, yeah, you want to go pretty fast with watercolor overall, I mean, for yourself. And when did we do more when did we do trees? We did not do trees yet. To answer your question, trees are going to be done after the entire background is done. So before that, if some of you are using metallics, we're going to need to add metallics. And for all of us, regardless whether we're using metallics or not using metallics, we're going to need to splatter some white and then some white in the middle. That's way before that we can move on to trees. And only after our background is fully done, then we're going to move to mountain, and trees are going to be very last thing here. So I hope that makes sense. But again, I'll give you a couple of minutes. And whenever I see more thumbs up, then we're going to move to the rest of the sections of our background. No worries at all. If you're already added your trees, so what are you going to do? As we're going to be adding splatter and everything else, if some of your splatter gets on the trees, that's okay. Just cover it up with black, right? Because why we're adding trees last is because we don't want stars, the splatters of they're representing stars on our trees. So that's why we're adding them last. But if you already added them, it's not a problem. Just if any splatter gets on your trees, just cover it up with black. All right, I see some thumbs up. So let me show you what's next, guys. And for those who are using any metallics, that's what you're going to do next. For those who are not using metallics, you can wait a couple minutes because we're going to add white after metallic. To answer your question why I am not using blow dryer, because I have to wait for everyone all the time anyway, because I know I'm not expecting you guys to do it as fast as I'm doing it, because for reasons, actually many reasons, and one of them is I need you to look while I'm doing it. So we cannot be physically done at the same time because you need to start doing it after you saw me do it. So because I have to wait for everyone, it doesn't make sense for me to also dry it faster. In the time that I have to wait for everyone, it dries just naturally, so there is no need. But also, I find that a lot of people find useful using blow dryer, which is go for it. If you have a blow dryer nearby and you don't want to wait, or you find that it actually, you like taking your time, so then you're falling behind because your paint is not drying, in that case, absolutely. Go for it, use blow dryer. You'll find it really helpful. All right, so what I'm gonna do now is if anyone is using metallic, you can use any compatible metallic color. So anything on a pinker side, the white one, blue I probably wouldn't recommend. I would probably say stay away. I would say something on a pinker side, or even purple is fine. So anything on the pinker side or purple. And where you're gonna add it is this sections. So around here, you're not going to add it right in the middle. You're not going to add it right in the end. So you're going to add it right here, or you can add it right here. You can even use two colors. You can use something pinker right here, and you can use something more like a purpler color right here. So let me show you. I'm going to start with this purple one. Looks like a good color. And this watercolor takes a second off. So you have to add some water and just let it sit for a second as the paint gets more liquid. It's not as instant as my other one. It takes a minute. So I'm going to add some water and let it sit there for a second to absorb that pigment. Oh yeah, well, this is good. And with this color, which is really nice metallic purple with like a hint of blue to it, I'm gonna go somewhere around here, and you're gonna add it really, really wet. Because we're just trying to add an accent, but it's not really giving you a color. As you can see, it's not adding any color. It's just adding the shimmer. That's why we did all the background flat first. And again, it's not required to do it in metallics. Metallics is just like a little addition. This pearl. If you do it without metallics, it will still look really great. Right, so I added a bit of that. And now I'm gonna go on to the pinker colors. Let's try this one. Let's see how this one goes. And again, I have to let it sit for a second. Oh yeah, that's nice. And with this, I'm gonna go right here. So where my white merges into my pinks, and I'll add a little bit of that. Just a touch of shimmer. Again, not right in the very middle. We're reserving very middle for straight white. All right. This is looking great. And if you want to, you can always spread your metallics a little bit with just straight water. So now I'm just going to take some straight water. I'll spread it a little, just a touch. I'm not trying to spread it everywhere, just in certain spots. Let me show you closer. You see now you can see that little bit of shimmer. That is not overwhelming. And you can continue building. So if you wanted more of a metallic look and actually to be like really bright metallic, you're gonna need to let this dry and do a second layer. And again, the more pigment you use, so the less water and the more saturated you make your pigment, the more it's gonna show. For me, I didn't want it to be crazy, like reflective. I just wanted to add a little bit of shimmer here and there. So this does the job perfectly because I can still see all my colors through. I can still see it the way that it was at first, but this just adds another layer of shimmer here and there. You see that purpley blue on the sides that we added, a bit of pinker, light pink, like maybe pearl pink shimmer in the middle. All right, and again, if you're using metallics, you're gonna start your first splatter layer with metallics. So again, you're gonna grab any compatible color. So anything on a pinker side or light purple is very compatible. I'm gonna go with exact same pink. I'm just gonna try to make it a bit more saturated this time. But also to splatter, you're gonna need some water, so you can't do without that. And what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna grab a brush full of that, and I will use a clean brush, hold it like that, and I'll bang my brush with paint over the clean brush. So that's for those who are using metallic. For those who are not using metallics, we're gonna do white in a second. For those who are using metallics, we're gonna do white as well. It's just for those who are using metallics, gonna have 2 layers of splatter. One in metallic color and one in white. And for those who are just using regular watercolors, you're gonna have just white. Alternatively, you could do a couple different shades of splatter. You can do light pink and light purple splatter as a first layer and then metallic. So you can do that too. Sorry, not metallic, then white. Finish up with white, that's an option too. Right, so this is already getting this very magical star-like look, which I love personally. All right, and now we can move to white. So I'm gonna put away metallics. I'm not gonna be using them anymore, but if you wanna use more, absolutely go for it. Again, sky's the limit of what you can do here. You can do anything. All right, I'll put my watercolor aside. This one's aside, and I'm gonna grab my other watercolor and I'm gonna use white. So if your watercolor has white, great, you can use it. I know some watercolors have great white, some watercolors don't have great white, and that's okay. You can use acrylic for this instead. If your watercolor has either really horrible white or doesn't have any, just grab acrylic and you use acrylic or even white ink. I'll show you guys. So after I finish this, I'm going to talk to you about brands of paint, because I see a question about which brand I'm using for metallics and for this color paint. I'm going to show you the brand and I'm going to show you the palette so you know what to expect from them. But let's finish this first, and then I promise you to do that. All right, so now we're going to add some white. So I'm going to take my medium brush-ish, medium, doesn't have to be specifically medium, and I'm gonna get white as saturated as I can for my watercolor. And again, acrylic will also work if white watercolor is not your thing. And we're gonna start by adding just a little bit of that in the middle. Sometimes I would even dab it with my finger, because I find that sometimes brush doesn't give me exactly what I want. Sometimes I would just add it and dab it off with my finger as well, just to increase that line going up a little. Do you see? See, just extended that a little bit. And then I'm going to take more watered down white and I'm going to splatter. So again, you're going to use 2 brushes, one with a really liquid but pretty saturated white and one clean with nothing. And you're going to hold clean one pretty close to your paper and then bang the one with paint over the clean one. You see, it's a beautiful star-filled sky now. And you can always even add, it's not an original painting, actually. Original painting just only has a star sky. But if you wanted to, you can always add like a shooting star or something like that. And you would just take a small brush and a really saturated white, and you can do like a shooting star somewhere. For example, right here. I'll turn this into a shooting star. I can add a couple shooting stars or none. You don't have to have shooting stars. This is just an option for you to think about. Yeah, I like this. All right, background is done. Nothing else on a background. After that, we're gonna move on to our mountain and our trees. So again, I'll give you guys a second. When you have it, let me know, and then we'll move to the next one. In the meantime, I'm gonna just read your questions here and see what I can respond to. Can you use a glittery eyeshadow or blush to use metallic effect? You can try for sure. I don't know. I haven't tried, but yes, go for it. Absolutely. Try it out. Let us know if it works. I don't see why it wouldn't. Technically, it is still a pigment, right? So I think it should work, but I can't tell you for sure just because I have never tried that before. Yes, Robin, that's a great idea. I agree with you. Cloth is way better than paper towel. We use cloth a lot of the time. And when we used to host in-person event, you know, when we would have many participants in person with us, we would always use cloth because paper towel is just not sustainable. It's way too much waste in a way. But now I think all my cloths are in a really bad shape and I need to buy new ones, and I know that. So thank you for reminding me. I really appreciate it because you're right. Paper towel is not very environmentally friendly just to waste it like that when we could be using cloth. 100%. I'm with you on that. I definitely need to buy more of the cloths to start using those again. Oh, and for those of you who are wondering about the brand of paint that I'm using, this one is a koi watercolor. Again, you're free to use any. There are a lot of good brands on the market. This is not a paid promotion, by the way. This is just what I have on hand. And this is what it looks like. Well, this is the colors that it gives you. So far, I'm happy with it. There's nothing bad that I can say about it. I'm quite satisfied with the quality and the price per quality. Yeah, I like it. But I also have a very basic palette that looks such as Crayola. And honestly, I think it's a good watercolor too. It's not as maybe vibrant. This one is definitely more pigmented and more vibrant. And it has a bit more pre-mixed colors, right? But the more basic watercolor is definitely a good option as well because it still works well. You can create a masterpiece with either. And for my shimmery one, I'm using, this is Arteza, 24 metallic colors. Now, few things about this one is overall, I do like it. Here are the colors that I'm going to show you. So this is the colors that it gives you. I just put them all here. See, I haven't done them on, oh no, maybe I have. Oh yeah, I have. So this is on a white paper that it looks like. This is what they would look like if you're painting over the white background. See, pretty nice. There's certain colors that I absolutely love, like all those golds. They're pretty solid. So, but some of them are really transparent. So yeah, overall, I like it. I think it has a really great variety of colors. Like again, those are all the colors. And this is a really great variety. There's any shade imaginable here. If you're looking for more of a transparent watercolor, transparent metallic, this is definitely a great choice. However, I know a lot of people are looking for more of metallic that you cannot see the background through. If that's what you're looking for, this is not for you, because you can and you will see the background through these ones. That's why I use them as an addition always on top of already painted, because as you can see, it just adds that shimmer, right? It doesn't do a solid layer. It doesn't cover up what you already on. It just adds the beautiful shimmer to it. And of course, if you make it very saturated and splatter, yes, it will go pretty solid. So again, if you looking for metallics that will be in addition for your watercolor, this is a wonderful choice. If you're looking for metallics that can color the white or black canvas solid so you cannot see anything through, no, you might need to use different brand. So yeah, but yeah, if you're looking for something that what we did right now, go for it. Good brand, recommend. And again, guys, none of that is a paid promotion. It's just we get asked these questions a lot, and we actually we try different materials, we try different brands because we want to know what's good, right? We want to know what's out there, what's worth using, what's not, and we go through paint quite fast. So we like giving these little tips on what to use, what not to use quite often. All right, so this is what it looks like right now. Okay, guys, so let's move back to our mountain. So I'm gonna go back to my black. And here again, if your watercolor doesn't have a solid black, because for example, this one that I'm using now has a wonderful black, it's very solid. However, the one I used, the other one that I have, the Crayola one, the more simple palette, this black is not that good. So if you have palette like that, you might want to use acrylic black instead. But if you do have more of a professional watercolor, then you should probably have a really good solid black. So we're going to use that. And you're going to use small brush this time. And you're going to use your black very saturated. So make it as saturated as you can. And let's go on our mountain. And again, we're going to start adding those lines from the bottom up. So I'm going to start with the edge. Pull it a little bit into the edge. Do you see how dark I got? You just can see just a little bit through. And now I'm going to bring it right to the edge here as well. You see? And then I'm going to move to the second one right here. And I'm going to do the same thing. The only thing, I'm not going to go as far up this time. And of course, I'm not going to add as many because we're trying to keep this mountain a little lighter. The side of the mountain. And I'm gonna, again, make it super solid closer to the edge here. And then last one, we'll do pretty similar thing, except I'll darken up this corner a little here. All right, our mountains are done. But again, I'm gonna give you guys a second to do that. No rush. Whenever you have it, let me know and then we'll move to trees. But if you need a bit more time, that's totally fine. And I'm gonna show you how to do trees on a separate something, maybe even on my palette. So you can see it a little better, because I know it's hard to see here. It's all the colored background. But yeah, I'll give you guys another second to finish your mountain first. All right, so let's move to our trees. So let me show you how we're gonna do trees. We're gonna use very saturated black and the smallest brush that you have. And let me show you here first, maybe right here, before we move on to the actual painting. So we're gonna start with the tree trunk. We'll put a line from the bottom up, like that. And then you're gonna start adding little horizontal lines. Going from the top down, they're gonna be all horizontal. The top ones are gonna be small, and then as you go lower, they're gonna get bigger, bigger, and bigger. And use just the very tip of your brush. That's how you do a tree. So that's how we're going to do all our trees. But before we do them, we're actually going to position all our tree trunks. So I'm going to start right here. And we want to have a variety, right? We want to have some longer, some shorter, some taller, some not so tall. So I'm going to start here and I'll put the tree trunk up. And then, you see? Then another, a little higher. Because again, a variety, we want a variety. Then a really tall one next. Then following one, I will do a little shorter. And a couple more. Right, so I have variety on that side. And then I'm going to move to another side. And again, I'll try to create a variety there. So short, longer, then shorter. Or maybe a few longer ones. A few taller. We'll do a couple of really tall ones here. And now we're going to start turning all those tree trunks into trees. Yes, trees on this side. Now we're going to move and add trees on the other side. So I'll add some trees right here. you guys, and that is pretty much it. Here is what my first version of it looked like, and here is what we made today looks like. Now, if you have any questions, ask away. I'll be happy to help you with whatever I can. If you would like to share your painting with us, we would absolutely love to see how it turned out. And what you could do, you can post your results on our Facebook group that is dedicated specifically to watercolor. It's a peer support group where you can just hang out and connect and chat with people who are also on the journey of discovering watercolor and just get a feedback from people who are also learning about watercolor. I will post a link to the group here. It's called Watercolor Lovers by Artist Palette Durham region. So I just posted the link here. Feel free to go there. And if you want to share your results with us there, please do that. We would love to see it. And I'm sure other people would love to see your results as well. But no pressure. If you would rather not, that's totally fine. Yay. I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. Here they are. All right, if no one has any questions, I'm going to let you all finish in peace. Again, thank you so much for joining me, guys, and I hope to see you again. Bye, everyone.